Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony, he's Ron, and we're about to uncover the MAGA propaganda not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. We should say a goodbye to Stephen Colbert. Isn't he just finishing this week? Another example of authoritarianism taking over the media. Let's dive straight into our huge selection of topics today, Ron, because an awful lot is happening. We've got updates on the ballroom to come. We've got, Trump's endorsements along the way. But why don't we start with this? I mean, we're calling it a slush fund, and they must hate that. But that's basically what probably the most corrupt, outwardly corrupt project that Donald Trump could ever come up with, which is effectively he was trying to sue the IRS for $10 billion because somebody leaked his tax returns. And this was whilst he was president, of course, back in, was it 2020, I think. So he was suing his own IRS, and then he's agreed to not sue them in return for a settlement of $1776 billion. So $1,776 million, which is calling a fund that anybody who has experienced weaponization or lawfare, this kind of word they've created, doesn't really exist, does it? Including January 6 defendants, could actually apply for compensation from this fund. Have I got that right in a bit of a nutshell?
Yeah, it's not limited to people who were arrested or charged with crimes, right, although it would include all of those people for sure.
Yes.
But it can be anybody. It could be any person who claims that they were persecuted, harassed, wronged in some way by the Biden administration can file claims. So, when this story first broke 72 hours ago, there wasn't very much detail to go off. The only thing we knew was the language that was in Trump's settlement with his own Department of Justice, yes. which had some pretty scary language in it. It basically just said, it said it was going to be confidential, that all the settlements were going to be kept secret. We have since learned in the last 36 hours between Todd Blanche's testimony before the Senate and a few other statements that have been made that we've learned a little bit more details on how Blanche intends for this to work. But there are still many, many unanswered questions. What have we learned since then? So what we know is this money is coming out of money that was previously appropriated by Congress, that is put in a pool of money that is used to pay out and settle law. I mean, the government gets sued all over the country thousands of times every year by lots of people. Some of those cases get settled. And this is a fund that's used to pay out settlements, and it could be just a government truck that runs somebody over, like a personal injury case, something like that. Could be almost anything. So they're going to raid that fund of taxpayer dollars. They're basically going to set up a tribunal. It's going to have 5 people on it. Who chooses the 5 people? Todd Blanche, Trump's former criminal defense lawyer, chooses the 5 people. The president can remove any of the 5. So if Blanche, for somehow amazing reason, picks someone that Trump doesn't like, Trump can just remove that person. So essentially, Trump has control over who's on this committee by being able to remove anybody that he wants.
Yes.
So it's really Trump putting people on this committee. It will be very, very interesting to see who the 5 people are on this thing. So,
and the fifth person on the committee is going to be decided, is apparently going to be part of more of a public consultation.
Well, it's a consultation with congressional leadership, which means Mike Johnson and Thune will be consulted on one of the choices. Okay, that big deal. Bottom line is Trump is picking these 5. Right. So according to Blanche, these settlements are going to be made public. Okay, he claims, but only every quarter. So we won't know until every 3 months. I don't expect we'll get much detail, but he claims that he's going to give the names and the dollar amounts, and that's probably about it. So how, they was grilled about how this is going to work, what the criteria are. There people that aren't eligible? He really didn't have a whole lot to say. It's quite clear that they're just sort of trying to figure this out. Meanwhile, you have Democratic groups, you have Democratic members of Congress looking for legal ways, political ways to stop this, legislative ways. And they are also being joined by several Republicans in swing competitive districts who, correctly so, view this as toxic to their reelection chances.
Yep.
This, along with gas prices, is just like two knockout punches for Republicans in swing districts. So they're actually like joining with Democrats to try and figure out a way to stop this.
And that includes Representative Fitzpatrick. Let's see what he had to say this morning.
What do you make of this $1.7 billion fund for
bad news? We're going to try to kill it.
You're going to try and kill it?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. And how?
Well, we're considering legislative options. We're going to write a letter to the AG to start, but we're considering a legislative option.
Okay.
We're trying to unpack exactly, what the legal machinations are, but can't do that.
Right. And have you ever heard of any other Americans, like, other than Trump as an associate?
I haven't.
Who are unauditable by the IRS?
I've never heard that before.
Okay. So would that be part of the legislative?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah, you can't do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Now, that final part is really, really important because this is a reference to the fact that slipped into this plan is that Donald Trump has required them to prevent the IRS from ever investigating him, his private businesses, his family's businesses, and that his tax returns will kind of never be looked at. And it's actually written up, and I'll read a little piece of it. This is Part C. The United States releases, waives, acquits, and forever discharges each of the plaintiffs from, and hereby forever barred and precluded from prosecuting or pursuing any of all claims, counterclaims, causes of action, appeals or requests for any relief, including injunctive relief, monetary relief, damages, examinations or similar, or related reviews, appeals, debt relief, costs, attorneys' fees, expenses, and interest, whether presently known or unknown. I mean, just explain this to us, Ron, because it seems, I mentioned how this is corruption in plain sight. It to me, it confirms my view that they don't care about votes in November or even 2028. Like the corruption is so blatant that, of course, as you alluded to earlier, with elections coming up, you would expect them to want to try and walk quite a tight rope. But it is full on, all-out corruption and authoritarianism.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that that's not Trump's priority. I mean, the other thing that proves that is he hasn't spent any of his PAC money again. He's got this massive war chest of money, and you're already hearing Republicans around the country grumbling about, hey, when is some of that money going to flow into our races at some point? I heard one big Republican consultant say they'll be happy if Trump spends 10% of the money that he raised. Wow. He raised this. He's still raising this massive war chest, which he claims to all his supporters that he's going to use on the midterms. But as we know from the 2022 elections, he spent nothing. He spent 1% of the money that he raised for the midterms then. Yeah. So I wouldn't expect it to happen again either. But think about really how this started. I mean, this started with Trump promising to release his tax returns for years and years and years, but falsely claiming he wasn't allowed to or couldn't because he was being audited. And this drug on for years. Then what happened is in 2020, one low-level contract IRS employee leaked not only Trump's tax returns, but hundreds of thousands of Americans' tax returns. He leaked them. Yeah. And the press got a hold of them. And one of those, New York Times did, and one of those groups of tax returns involved Donald Trump's businesses, Trump Org. So that's how it ended up getting leaked. Trump did not suffer any harm or anything as a result. They were just his tax returns that were made public. So he has turned that into a frivolous lawsuit that resulted in not only $1.7 billion slush fund being created for his supporters that he can dole out as he sees fit. And by the way, he can use that to silence people, because a lot of his biggest critics right now are the far-right MAGA people who are mad at him about Epstein, mad at him in Iran. And those are some of the same people that are now want money. So think about how diabolical it is. A lot of his harshest critics on the far right, I think, are going to shut up because they're looking for a piece of this pie.
Yes, of course.
Because their grift is more important than the issues.
Right.
So then he also turned it into what you just saw. He installs his former criminal defense lawyer into the Department of Justice, who then signs that addendum, which he signed yesterday as part of the settlement, that neither Trump, his family members, or his companies can be audited or investigated or prosecuted for tax fraud, including his family members. And so think about it. He can basically just refuse to pay taxes. He can just ignore. He can just file fraudulent returns according to this agreement, and nothing will happen to him.
Which is what he's always wanted, probably.
Well, what anybody wants. I mean, one representative was asked about it in Congress yesterday by us. I forget which one. I think it was Gallego, maybe. Yeah, it was Gallego.
Yeah.
We asked him, have you ever heard of any American at any point in time be given immunity from being audited by the IRS? He said, God, maybe God doesn't have to pay taxes. That's about it. I mean, it's just brazen, naked corruption.
Yep.
And you can, look, all these Republicans in the super safe districts are not going to say anything because they don't have anything to worry about. But you look at a guy like Fitzpatrick there, he's in a district in Pennsylvania that Joe Biden won, Kamala Harris won, Bob Casey, who ran for Senate and lost, he won Fitzpatrick's district. It is probably a D+3 district that he's now got to run in with gas prices, heading towards $5 a gallon. And now this. So you can see him kind of hyperventilating there going, I can't believe I have to run on this.
2 police officers who clashed with rioters during the insurrection on January 6 have today sued Trump over these plans to create this anti-weaponization fund. Harry Dunn is one of them. This is, the fact that police officers are having to sue the government because that kind of respect and authority that goes with being a police officer in the US, not least a Capitol police officer, has been completely run roughshod over by the president himself. It's such an insult to the system with which you try and run a kind of civil country. Not that that's a good choice of words for the US anymore, but I mean, they were asking, we'll watch the clips in a second, they were asking Todd Blanche on the stand about police officers being attacked and the fact that police officers were being attacked and the people doing the attacking have a right to claim compensation. I mean, Trump pardoned 1,500 rioters after January 6. 30 or 40 of them have since been arrested for the craziest of crimes, ranging from child sex offenses to stalking and goodness knows what else. I mean, he is basically showing himself as being as much a criminal as anybody who committed criminal acts on that day and afterwards.
There's a clip that's circulating right now on social media that occurred in his last couple of days in office in 2020.
Yes.
And it was a time when he had already been impeached by the House and it was about to go to trial in the Senate. And he put out a video. I think it was like January 12th or something like that. He put out a video where he said he wants to make sure that every person who committed a crime and every person who touched a police officer on January 6th is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And it's totally unacceptable what happened. And he wants to see all that he put that video out, and that was cited by Mitch McConnell, specifically cited that video because remember, he was the one on the fence. It was all going to come down to McConnell. And Trump narrowly survived conviction. I think it was like 6 votes. And McConnell was the linchpin because there were a lot of Republicans that were going to go with whatever McConnell decided. He was the majority leader. minority leader at the time. So he comes out at, I think it was like the day before the trial or something, and says he's going to vote to acquit, and he cited that Trump video. So we go from Trump saying they should all be prosecuted, everybody who committed crimes, to then pardoning them, to now compensating them with taxpayer money, with our money, paying them. I think that one of the things that Fitzpatrick did is he elaborated in another interview with Scott McFarlane later today, after that first one with Pablo. And I guess he had some time to sort of collect his thoughts. And what he was saying is, you know, he's going to look at the original appropriation of this money to see if there's any, you know, specifics there as far as like what it can be used for and what it can't. I mean, there's probably a lot of different mechanisms, along with lawsuits filed by outside groups like Harry Dunn and others. I think Democrats are certainly going to file something. There's probably a lot that can be done to prevent this, but you've already got these grifters lining up. Think about it. It's all the January 6ers,
Oath Keepers,
all the racketeering people,
right?
You know, Alex Jones.
Yep.
You got, you know, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, Jeffrey Clark, all these scumbags, plus everyone else, you know, Roger Stone, everyone else that was prosecuted for anything, for tax fraud, for corruption. They all can come up and get millions of dollars now. It's like an early retirement.
Yeah.
And I implore Democrats, do not use this language that they are getting money from DOJ, that they're getting money from the Treasury. No, they're getting money from us.
Yeah.
They're being paid by hardworking, law-abiding taxpayers are paying these scumbags. And that's what Democrats need to repeat. I'm a little upset about the media coverage. I think there's been a lot of media coverage of it, but not nearly enough. But I am pleased with the Democrats' reaction. They have been really, really aggressive and tough in pushing back on this. And that's a good sign, because I was a little worried that they were distracted by a lot of other things.
And that is the idea, though, is to distract with a lot of other things. I mean, there are a lot of other things going on, but they do have to tackle all of the things. And I agree. I mean, it has been a little bit wishy-washy when you consider that this is, you know, you and I, we wake up in the morning and dread picking up our phones to see what shitstorm has showed up today. I mean, you couldn't have predicted anything as brazen and blatant as this, could you?
Yeah, I mean, no. And you know, what we tried to do is we have our two Capitol reporter that are roaming the halls there, and we are really trying to shape the agenda as much as we can, you know, because when they say to me, oh, yesterday, like, what do you want us to ask members of Congress? I say only one thing: the slush fund. We got to go to every single one of them, Republicans and Democrats, and say, what do you think about this? What about this? I mean, just make sure that they understand, the Democrats understand how livid we are out here about this. And they might get caught up in their committee hearings and their process, or the agriculture bill, or this bill about AI. But please understand, you know, we get in their faces, you know, this is something that we care about. The corruption we care about very passionately. And we don't expect this to be swept under the rug. And I think that they definitely feel that vibe. And a lot of them legitimately feel upset themselves. So
let's take a look at Van Hollen putting Todd Blanche through his paces.
Thank you, Senator Collins. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Attorney General, this is an outrageous, unprecedented slush fund that you set up. Simple question. Will individuals who assaulted Capitol Hill police officers be eligible for this fund?
Well, as it makes plain, anybody is
just let me know if they're eligible for the fund.
As was made plain yesterday, anybody in this country is eligible to apply if they believe they were victim of weaponization.
Mr. Attorney General, let me ask you this. Are there going to be rules that say that if you've assaulted a Capitol Hill police officer or committed a violent crime, you will not be eligible? Why not make that a rule?
I expect that, because I'm not one of the commissioners setting up the rules, I expect that there will be rules.
You're appointing 4 of the 5 members, aren't you, Mr. Attorney General?
Pardon me?
You're appointing 4 of the 5 members.
I am appointing
You can
all 5
certainly
members.
set up the rules. I would hope you would make a rule that anyone convicted of assaulting a police officer or a violent crime is simply not eligible. They should not apply.
Well,
Let me ask you this, because you compared it to the Keepsiegel case. But I think you know full well that in that case, the settlement agreement was approved by a federal judge, including the payments to people who were not originally parties to the lawsuit. No federal judge has approved this fund, have they, Mr. Attorney General?
no federal judge did approve this.
So that's a big difference between this case and the case that you compared it to.
No, it's not.
Well, did a judge sign off on this case?
No.
A judge did sign off on the other one.
Yes, but your question was whether it's a big difference. It's not.
Of course it is, because that allows for an independent person to look at it rather than the
There was no independence. There was no independence. There was a single commissioner. A judge signed off on it. A judge had nothing to do with deciding the money.
There was a judge who looked at it and signed off on it. So to compare that case to this one is incredibly deceptive.
And then we come to the rub that Todd Blanche is, as you said earlier, Donald Trump's former defense attorney, his personal lawyer, effectively. And this is a real problem for this entire project, but certainly for Van Hollen. Let's take a look.
You're not going to submit this proposal to any federal judge or independent.
There is no judge.
Any independent authority?
What does that mean, an independent authority?
It means not somebody who's getting to pick 5 of the members who was the president's former personal attorney. That would be somebody who would be independent.
I'm the acting attorney general, okay? The fact that I used to be President Trump's lawyer is just a fact, but I'm the acting attorney general. So don't say the president's former personal lawyer will do something. The acting attorney general will do something.
Mr. Attorney General, you are acting today like the president's personal attorney. And that's the whole problem. You have a whole banner of his face hanging over the Department of Justice, and you and everybody else walks under it. And you are acting like you're his current personal attorney. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
I mean, he's good, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job. I mean, but that's the point. This is why every single time I refer to Todd Blanche, I refer to him as Trump's former. Not only, I wish he would change that language. It wasn't Trump's personal attorney. Trump had a lot of personal attorneys.
Right.
Todd Blanche was hired for one thing. He was Trump's criminal defense lawyer. He's a criminal lawyer, Blanche is.
Yeah.
He was hired to defend Trump from crimes. So every time I refer to Todd Blanche, I refer to him as Trump's former criminal defense attorney, because we have never had in the history of the United States, and we have had attorney generals since George Washington, we have never had a president appoint one of his personal attorneys who represented him in court as the attorney general of the United States, and to then have that person create himself a fund, take $1.7 billion of taxpayer money, just grab that money, and then appoint a 5-member commission, which will meet in secret. We will not see their meetings. We will not see their deliberations. We will not know what evidence they're reviewing in these claims. The only thing we're going to know is after the fact, every 3 months, he's going to tell us who got money and how much they got. That's it. I mean, that is just absolute insanity. That is not how a republic is supposed to operate, with secret star chambers handing out our money to criminals.
Well, it's not a republic anymore.
I pray that this can be somehow stopped some way.
Yeah.
And I pray that this costs many Republicans their seat in Congress.
This is how a dictatorship operates, though.
Absolutely.
And so we have to be very clear about that. Do you remember that clip from earlier this week? I don't have it, but where Trump got up, and I couldn't believe he said this, Ron. He's talking about Todd Blanche, and he goes, he kept me out of jail. He kept me out of jail. He kept me out of jail, and he kept me out of jail. 4 times, he said
that's why he appointed him attorney general.
Right. But that, to me, because obviously with Trump everything is an admission, is a projection, you flip it, suggests that he knows he should have been in jail, that Todd Blanche kept him out of jail.
But it's also, again, factually not true, because Todd Blanche lost the only trials that he did. He lost both of them badly.
Yeah.
And Trump was about to be sentenced to prison when he won the election.
Correct.
And that sentencing was essentially canceled. And then Aileen Cannon threw out the documents case on a technicality. That would have been reversed on appeal, but that got tossed too. And then the U.S. Supreme Court gave him immunity. So Blanche didn't do anything. Blanche lost everything that he did in court. The election kept Trump out of jail. That's the reality, not Todd Blanche.
And Todd Blanche, I mean, we don't know a huge amount about this guy, but I sense that he is the last person to be autonomous. He takes direction. And this slush fund clearly has come from Trump.
You know, in that same hearing, he was asked about going to visit Ghislaine Maxwell, and transferring her to the different prison. And he said that he never had a conversation with Trump about going there. And I wish that one of the senators had asked him this. Have you, Mr. Attorney General, you've been Deputy Attorney General and Attorney General for 16 months now, 17 months. Have you visited any other inmates in federal prison? Right. I wish someone had asked that as a follow-up. Nobody did.
No.
Because the answer is because he tried to claim, oh, no, this is a routine matter. You know, Trump never asked me to do this. I did this on my own. It's like, how many other inmates have you visited since you've been Deputy Attorney General? Because the answer is one, only Maxwell. He has not visited any other inmates. So then the next follow-up would be, why her?
Yeah.
Why specifically her? Why is she the only federal inmate that you have personally visited in prison? Why her specifically? Oh, because it just so. And why did he specifically ask a bunch of questions about Donald Trump in that meeting? Well, obviously that's why. If Donald Trump was not involved in that case, he would not have gone down to Florida and visited her or transferred her.
Let's because this is a little bit of a connection here about kind of Trump dominating, and I want to talk about Senator Cassidy's defeat and Trump's endorsement of the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton. I mean, it's all kind of intertwined as far as I see it, because, you know, as much as we can see Trump see his star diminishing, certainly his polling, I mean, what was it, down to 30, 36, 37 now, or has it gone lower than that? But I mean, I can't even believe that 37% of the country still think he's doing a good job at anything. But he still does seem to be able to dominate the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And it really is a takeover of the former GOP. Again, you know, Trump without a primary also basically becoming the leader of this movement that is far greater than the old party of the party of old.
You know, you actually make the perfect point on this issue, which is very rare for you. Just kidding. You make the perfect point, which is, you know, at a time when his popularity among the general population has never been lower ever in either of his two terms. This is his lowest popularity by far. He is exerting more control over the Republican Party than ever before, by far.
Yeah.
I mean, he has endorsed before and he's griped about people before and he's gone after people like Kinzinger and Cheney, but nothing like what we're seeing right now, where he is literally going after loyalists, people who have voted with him 99% of the time, people who have not done anything necessarily that personally harmed him, and people who have been kissing his ass for many months. He has become more and more emboldened. When Cassidy came in third in the primary after he came out against him, and Cassidy has done he's voted with Trump 100% of the time this term. 100% of the time. The only time that Cassidy ever crossed Trump on anything was 6 years ago on the impeachment vote.
Yeah.
And since that time, Cassidy has done nothing but suck up to Trump. And that didn't matter. Trump took him out. And all the reporting was that after that happened, Trump became very emboldened to do more. And, you know, we went after Massie. Now he took out Massie. And that he was going to stay out of the Senate race in Texas because he had been persuaded by John Thune. All the Republican senators wanted him to stay out of that race because they correctly saw that Trump wants to endorse Paxton. That's his buddy. He doesn't particularly like Cornyn, but Cornyn definitely gives him the best chance to win because Paxton is a criminal. Paxton is despised. Paxton was ratted out by Republican whistleblowers in his own office to the FBI. He was impeached by the Texas Republican House of Representatives. He was almost convicted, but barely saved by a couple of votes, including his wife's vote, who voted to acquit him. This is the guy that Trump endorsed over Cornyn. I think Cornyn beats Tallarico in this race, but I don't think Paxton necessarily does. Right. I've said 6 months ago that the dream matchup back when it was Crockett and Tallarico against Cornyn and Paxton, I said way back then on this show and other places, the dream scenario for Democrats was Paxton Tallarico. Mm-hmm. And Trump has just handed that to us on a silver platter.
Yeah.
I mean, and I can tell you that the reaction, the quotes from Republicans, from Thune on, there was at least a dozen Republican senators yesterday who were fuming about this, who went both on and off the record to say that they were dismayed and disheartened. Some of them even said, we're going to lose Texas now. Yeah. There's a report out today that Greg Abbott is despondent, thinking that they're now going to lose that Senate seat. Think about this. Democrats could have a U.S. senator from Georgia, Ossoff, Texas, Tallarico, and North Carolina, Cooper. 3 senators across the Deep South. I mean, think about how much that's gonna hurt MAGA.
But that, again, all piles onto my theory that elections are irrelevant as far as Trump is concerned from this point onwards, or maybe even from last time onwards, because, you know, he's not making the right move strategically. He is going for the criminals. He is trying to build a criminal gang, a fraternity that will have his back and are ultimately loyal and will do anything, will break any law to maintain the MAGA authority.
The loyalty is more important than the election wins.
Let me read the endorsement that Trump posted on Truth Social. The highly respected Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, an America First patriot and someone who has always been extremely loyal to me in our amazing MAGA movement, is running for the United States Senate to represent a place I love and won big 3 times with 6.4 million votes in 2024, the most votes in the history of the state by far. So that's what he put on Truth Social. The reactions and the responses, you say, have been very interesting. But I'm maintaining my position, and I think we'll see this in future races, or anything between now and the midterms, and certainly before 2028. That the Trump kind of executive strategy is to build a criminal party rather than a Republican one.
Yeah, because it operates like a mafia organization, and Correct. He operates as
He's
a godfather.
Yeah.
But I mean, even that point right there, okay, yeah, he did well in Texas. Look, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were not good candidates for Texas. I mean, for a Texas election, those were not 2 candidates among the Democrats that were going to do well in Texas. And Democrats didn't care about that because they had written off Texas anyway. Mm-hmm. And also Democrats spent no money. Harris didn't campaign in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, of course
they thought Republicans had it in the bag and it wasn't worth it.
But also the reason why he did well is because there was a huge shift in the Latino vote in Texas in 2024 that also helped elect 3 new Republican congressmen, flip 3 seats along the border. And so that has reversed. That is no longer the case. Those same voters who flipped to him in Texas, the Latino voters, have flipped back and say that they now intend to vote Democrat. So, and Ken Paxton is not going to help with those particular voters. I mean, I think that this is something another Republican senator, I forget which one, was complaining that the result of this move is even if they now pull this race out and win it, they're going to have to shift a lot of money that was going to be spent in North Carolina, Maine, Ohio, Iowa, and other places. They're going to have to shift that money to Texas to try and pull that seat out for Paxton, whereas they felt with Cornyn, you know, he had a massive war chest of his own, that wasn't going to be necessary. But now it is going to be necessary. So even if they win, it could cost them a Senate seat in Maine. You know, I mean, it's a complete disaster. There's no reason for it. But the only reason why Trump did it is, as you said, Ken Paxton it would take a bullet for Trump. You know, he is an absolutely fanatical, loyal foot soldier and very corrupt. And, you know, Trump gave him partial credit for winning Texas in 2020 because Ken Paxton successfully sued 16 counties in Texas to prevent the mail-in balloting during COVID.
I remember. He's closing and tightening the net on who is going to be like in his orbit. You know, the team that he trusts going into 2028, because he ain't leaving. Well, we'll talk about the ballroom in a minute.
The guy he attacked today was John Thune, and this is he's open. This is the first time that he's ever really gone at Thune this hard. He did a long Truth Social post this morning where he just absolutely went after him. Called him stupid, you know, said he didn't pass the SAVE Act. He's got to nuke the filibuster, you know, one thing after another. And the reason why he did that is because Thune criticized his endorsement of Paxton. And Thune is occasionally goes, unlike Mike Johnson, Thune occasionally does not do what Trump wants him to do. He's also mad at Thune because Thune doesn't like the ballroom money. So we're seeing him now take on the Senate Majority Leader, which he has not really done in the past.
Right. And when you turn on your own people, that suggests that you really are kind of closing rank.
Yeah.
Let's look at this clip of Trump being asked, and he kind of goes off on the Fox News correspondent because her husband is Brian Fitzpatrick. Let's have a look.
Really
Did you have a problem with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
when her husband votes against me all the time, can you imagine? I don't know what's with him. You better ask him what's with him. Her husband, she's married to a certain congressman. He likes voting against Trump. You know what happens with that? It doesn't work out well. I don't know why he does. But.
Weird. So weird.
It's like a mafia boss.
Yeah. He's starting to look like, more and more like...
That's Jackie Heinrich, who's the chief White House correspondent for Fox News.
Yeah.
And he's like menacing her. She's trying to ask a question about Israel.
Yeah.
And he's menacing her about her husband, who we just saw in the previous clip, talking about not getting that $1.7 billion and joining with Democrats.
Yeah.
Look, the reason why he occasionally votes against Trump, and he doesn't do it often, is because he's in a district that's a lean Democratic district, one of the few. I mean, he's figured out a way to win it multiple times, but every race is super close, and he's in big trouble this time. So, but you see there, Trump, I mean, he's not just threatening Fitzpatrick there. He's threatening Heinrich. He's letting her know, look, you know, I'm not even going to answer your question because I'm mad at your husband.
Well, he's threatening Fox, and as state regime media, he's basically saying to them, if you want me, then you've got to have my back. Yep. And it's dark. Lindsey Graham, of course, who would take a bullet and possibly a bunch of flowers for Donald Trump, is also laying down the law. Let's take a look.
Let me ask you about the news overnight. Senator Bill Cassidy losing his primary in Louisiana. You worked closely with Senator Bill Cassidy on a range of different issues, including a plan to replace Obamacare. He, of course, voted to convict President Trump back in 2021 in the impeachment trial. Now he's lost his seat. Are you glad that Senator Cassidy is no longer going to be your colleague, Senator?
No, I like Bill. I thought he's a great senator, but he made a political decision. He voted to impeach President Trump, which would have ruined his political life. He could never run for office again. Massie's on the ballot Tuesday. He votes against Trump all the time. What's the headline? Trump strong. Those who try to destroy Trump politically, stand in the way of his agenda, are going to lose. Bill made a decision. What would LBJ do? Is it natural for a politician to go after people who try to destroy their political life? So Bill Cassidy's lost because he tried to destroy Trump. Massie's going to lose because he's trying to destroy the agenda. You can disagree with President Trump, but if you try to destroy him, you're going to lose because this is the party of Donald Trump.
There was a lot of stuff said there out loud, which is interesting. The thing that stuck out for me is this thing about destroying your political life. He said it twice. So that even whatever your district needs, whatever your voters and your constituents need is irrelevant. Your life in politics is over if you vote against the supreme leader.
And we've never had. I've been involved in politics, Republican politics, for a long time. My first campaign was 1987. I volunteered for a congressional campaign. So I have never heard a Republican senator say that the Republican Party is about one person, is about one man. It's always been about a set of ideals, a set of ideas, principles, beliefs, whatever, blah, 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 but never about the worship and obedience to one man. And what Lindsay is saying is that's what the party is now, that essentially Donald Trump is the king and you can't go against Trump. And so, but let's remember what Lindsay did back then. Lindsay was all set to vote to object to the certification of the election on January 6th. He had his speech all ready to go, and he was going to stand up there and rail about election fraud and how unfair the election was and vote against certifying it. And then January 6th happened, and Lindsay came back out and gave his famous speech where he's all disheveled and his tie's untied and his hair is a little tousled. And this was literally like hours after the mob stormed the Capitol and got cleared out. And he says, "That's it. I'm out. I'm done.
I'm out.
I defended you, Trump, all the way, but I'm out. This is the final straw for me. I'm done."
Yep.
And essentially said that's it, and then switched his voted to certify the election. Then what happens? He goes to fly back to South Carolina the next day, and he goes through the DC airport and he gets chased by a lot of January 6ers. And I posted a video of that. And they were a big mob of them were chasing him through the airport, screaming and yelling at him. And he's got his security guards and everything else. And Lindsay was very rattled by that. And he did not want that to be the rest of his life, being hounded by these people. So he decided to vote to acquit. So, and I think Cassidy only voted to convict because he thought that Donald Trump was finished. He probably thought, like many of us, or many people did, that after January 6th, Trump was done, that there was no possible way he could ever get elected again. I mean, the capacity for American stupidity is unlimited. That has since been disproven. That capacity for stupidity is now, there's no limit to it. So, so for him now to say, well, Cassidy was trying to destroy Trump's political career. I mean, I think what Cassidy did was he just thought Trump was finished and was never going to be back in power again. So it was a safe move for him at the time.
Right.
And it came back to bite him.
Yeah. I seem to remember that Trump had had a conversation with him as well after that and laid the law down. Let's
with Lindsay. Yeah, I think
Lindsay,
he summoned him to Mar-a-Lago.
That's right. I remember. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at a concession speech from Massie. This is kind of cute.
All right. Listen, I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede, and it took a while to find Ed Galrine in Tel Aviv. I did get the call through, though. I have called and conceded the race. We've been honorable the whole time, and we're going to stay that way.
The North Star is not just Trump. The North Star is also Israel with a lot of these people, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll go to that one second. So Massie now has 7 months left to go scorched earth, and I believe that he will. I believe that he's a little bit crazy.
Yep.
And I think that he is going to essentially become a Democrat for the next 7 months and just go nuts on Trump. What was interesting is Cassidy switched his vote the day after he lost his election. he switched his vote on the War Powers Act. He had voted against it every single time, but on Monday he voted for it and it passed because he joined with Collins and Murkowski.
Right. Was it
and
four
Tillis,
of them they needed?
Yeah. So I think that it will be very interesting to watch that as well. You know, you got Tillis, who's now going against Trump a lot, Murkowski, Collins, who's got a very difficult election in Maine, you know, in a Democratic state. So, you know, she's going to have to go rogue on a few things as well and go against Trump for her own political survival. And now you got Cassidy that could join that group of dissidents. Mitch McConnell, you never know what he's going to do on a few things.
Nor does he.
Yeah, so they got issues in terms of trying to hold votes together here, and Massie is just going to cause, I think, a lot of problems. But going back to the Israel thing, I mean, look, this was the most expensive primary in American history, and the reason why was not because of Massie spending money. Massie pretty much raised money the old-fashioned way. You got a lot of small dollar donations, and that was pretty much it. But spent against him was Donald Trump's organization, all of his affiliated PACs, all the allied PACs, but most especially AIPAC and a lot of the pro-Israel groups spent gobs and gobs and gobs of money because Massie is perceived as anti-Israel. He's obviously against the war in Iran. So the three most expensive primaries in the history of the United States are all because of pro-Israel PACs pouring money to defeat candidates who are perceived as anti-Israel. So that's not a healthy thing for our politics, in my opinion. Regardless of whatever your feelings are about Israel, it's not healthy for outside influences to exert that much power over our elections.
We have to take a quick break, but I want to come back and look at Trump's weird press conference about the ballroom, where he was talking about drones and snipers and all sorts of things. And then, of course, there was this weird Rededicate 250 conference that is like Christian nationalism on steroids. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. I had one of those dangerous late-night online shopping spirals the other day. You know, when you go online to buy one thing and suddenly you've got 7 tabs open and you're convincing yourself that somehow you need it all. So I finally go to check out, and of course I can't remember my password, and then I need my card, and then I need the security code, and then my phone's across the room because apparently every website now needs a verification text. And then I see that purple Shop Pay button. Instant relief. One tap, all my info's already there, checkout done in literally seconds. Honestly, it's become one of my favorite things when shopping online because it just makes everything smoother. No digging for your wallet, no forgotten logins, none of the usual checkout headache. And for anyone running a business, Shopify is powering millions of brands around the world, from huge household names to brand new businesses just getting started. They've got beautiful store templates, AI tools that help write product descriptions and improve product photos, plus everything from inventory management to shipping and analytics all in one place. And if you ever get stuck, they've got 24/7 customer support. See less carts go abandoned and more sales go with Shopify and their Shop Pay button. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/uncovered. Go to shopify.com/uncovered. That's shopify.com/uncovered. I had this moment the other day where I caught myself in the mirror after the gym and thought, why am I working this hard and still feel softer around the middle than I used to? Like in my 20s, I could clean things up for 2 weeks and bounce right back. Now, same workouts, same diet, completely different results. And I started reading more about how, as guys get older, testosterone naturally starts dropping. So your body starts holding on to fat more easily, especially around your stomach. And it gets harder to stay lean, even if your habits haven't changed that much. That's actually why I started taking Mars Men. I've been obsessed with this stuff lately because it's designed to support healthy testosterone levels naturally, with ingredients like Tongat Ali, Shilajit, zinc, and boron. No weird stimulants, no synthetic hormone stuff. What I've personally noticed is way steadier energy throughout the day, better focus, stronger lifts, and honestly just feeling more motivated in the gym again. Recovery's been better too. I'm feeling way more dialed in heading into summer. And I like that it's made in the USA and is third-party tested, so the quality actually feels legitimate. For a limited time, you can get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. It's also available on Amazon. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Getting older changes the way you think about lots of things. I used to think life insurance was one of those I'll deal with it later kind of tasks, until I started hearing stories from friends who'd lost a parent unexpectedly and saw how stressful everything became for the family left behind. That really shifted my mindset, because life insurance isn't really about you. It's about helping you give the people you love some financial security if something unexpected happens. And honestly, I always assumed that getting coverage would be this huge process with appointments and paperwork and all that stuff, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and even get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions online. You can get up to $3 million in coverage, and some policies are as low as $30 a month. What I like is that it removes a lot of the friction that normally keeps people from getting this stuff done in the first place. Take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/uncovered. That's ethos.com/uncovered. Application times may vary, rates may vary. And you can find links to our sponsors in the description below. Ron, during the break I was looking at Stephen Chung's Twitter. He's like one of the press guys, right?
And he's the head of communications for the White House. Yeah.
Okay, so he got promoted, didn't he?
He's the top guy. Yeah,
he's the top guy, right? And so, and I just managed to import it into this show because I wanted to just show this. It's not showing very well; it's just over our faces. But he posted this earlier. Do not ever doubt President Trump and his political power. F around, find out.
Yeah.
I mean, this plays into what you and I have been discussing. This idea that they really are leaning into this kind of very militarized form of government.
Yeah, I think it's more mafia than military. You know,
Right,
it's
Which is
organized
worse, I don't
crime.
know.
And I think that Chung has probably seen a few too many mob movies because he thinks he's Michael Corleone or something. You know, the thing about it is all he does is hurl insults, and he thinks that he's partially responsible for Trump winning the election when that's absolutely ridiculous. Chung didn't have anything to do with the campaign, really. He hurled insults at Democrats and hurled insults at reporters, and that didn't win Trump any votes. But according to Chung, he thinks he's the man. This is a guy who probably there's nobody else that would have given him a job. There's nobody. He literally was done with politics until Trump hired him because he couldn't get a job with anybody. So that's typical with a lot of the people that have been appointed by Trump to very senior positions. But no, he's the head of White House communications. He's the top guy. And what he's doing is he's leveling a threat. But the thing is, Trump only has this power inside his own movement, inside his own party. And he's flexing those muscles, but he does it to the detriment of the party as a whole because he elevates so many bad candidates like Ken Paxton. I mean, we've seen it over and over again. Herschel Walker basically gifted the Democrats a Senate seat in Georgia. Pennsylvania, Dr. Oz. I mean, he's made some of the most bizarre, crazy endorsements, backing candidates that were like the only candidate who could have lost. He backed Doug Mastriano for governor of Pennsylvania against Shapiro. I mean, he endorses some of the weirdest, worst possible candidates. So yes, his endorsement power is very strong inside Republican primaries where only Republicans can vote, but they actually come back to haunt the party itself, because in many cases, those are the worst possible general election candidates. It doesn't matter in many districts. It doesn't matter in Mississippi, for the governor race, because a Republican is going to win that no matter what. But it matters in a lot of other places, and that's where Trump really hurts them with these power moves. But like you said, for him, it's not really as much about winning the general election in November as it is about controlling the Republican Party. That is a lot more important to him.
So you mentioned that the people that Trump chooses are an interesting group of misfits. Let's talk about Sean Duffy for a moment, because he is another example of somebody who kind of started out as a reality TV show contestant and has basically brought that to the Department of Transportation. Just explain, because I didn't know much about this, but apparently for the last few months, he's been on a road trip with his wife filming it, and it's been sponsored by these very kind of companies that he oversees in his role as Secretary of Transportation.
Yeah, this is another example of where they never disclose ahead of time what they're going to do.
Right.
Because they know it's going to be controversial and people might try and stop it. So they just go do stuff, and then eventually the press finds out about it and writes a story, and then it all comes out. So Duffy years ago was a reality TV show guy. That's how he sort of his claim to fame. And then he got hired by Fox, and where he met his wife, who was also a Fox host, was on a reality TV show about a road trip. And that's how he met her. So they decided that they were going to relive that experience 20 years ago that they had when they met. Must be nice. We'd all like to do that. Go back and relive the days when we met our significant other and re-experience that again. And that's what he did. And for 7 months, he was out there making a documentary, basically filming a reality show. And the theory was, why are you doing this while we were working for the taxpayers? And by the way, not only was he transportation secretary in charge of airport, think of the highway system, the massive amount of stuff that the transportation secretary is in charge of. Right. He was also the NASA secretary.
Oh, yes, of course.
His NASA. So he had two big cabinet positions. While he was filming this road trip for 7 months, he was the NASA director and the transportation secretary. Then we find out that the whole thing was financed by companies that do business with the Department of Transportation, like Toyota and many others. The people who gave money were in the transportation business. Then we also find out that these companies were promised seats at the table in high profile events if they gave money, and many of them gave up to $1 million. Why? So that Duffy can promote this TV show that he's about to put out, the Great American Road Trip. And the theory is that this is supposed to encourage people, families, to get out on the road and take road trips. The odd thing about it is the timing of his release comes at a time when gas is more expensive than it's ever been. So literally nobody can afford to take road trips. Right. And he's putting out, a thing about going on road trips. It's just the tone deafness, the stupidity. Yeah. But look, why is people like him? Why was Kristi Noem doing all those videos, self-promoting? Why does Hegseth do the same thing? Because the three of them all intend to run for higher office. This guy, Duffy, intends to run for Senate or president or something. He's already talked about it. Hegseth is going to be running for, I think, president. He's going to run certainly for something. And Noem intended to run for president certainly in 2028. That's why they're doing this stuff. That's why they're spending taxpayer money promoting themselves instead of the agency that they work for.
America really is just one big infomercial, isn't it? That's
this administration certainly is
basically what it is. Let's take a look at Sean Duffy being grilled about this show.
So this show is incredibly out of touch with where Americans are. And I echo Senator Gillibrand's concerns that it really raises some serious ethics concerns about who you answer to, because the people organizing your show solicited corporate sponsors and promised rewards at each level of funding.
Now, Senator, I'd be honest, that's not true.
I'm looking at your thing. What you
that's
did for being
there's a memo of understanding that says no one gets any benefit for anything they do to participate.
I'll ask you a question. Maybe you can answer it.
Sure.
If I'm an airline executive and I paid $1 million for this Great American Road Trip, what would I get out of that?
From me, nothing.
Well, look, as I said, the deck that is out there says that if you give $1 million, you get 6 VIP invitations to receptions, you get to go to roundtables, you get to networking events.
If someone from the healthcare industry gives you $2 million, what do they get for it? What do you give
I do
them?
not oversee I do not regulate.
You have jurisdiction.
I do not regulate.
You have jurisdiction.
I do not
$2 million to put your face on TV, to buy steak dinners,
Mr. Secretary,
to go on vacation.
Listen to my point here.
That's what you do. Welcome to MAGA. Welcome to Drill Baby Drill.
Mr. Secretary,
are you going to drill? Do
please.
you want to support lower gas prices? I welcome that. Let's drill.
That was amazing at the end there. Welcome to MAGA. Welcome to Drill Baby Drill. Again, saying the quiet parts out loud, that quid pro quo is how they're running this organization.
And you see what he did there. Okay, so he went to his briefing book, their attack dog stuff. So, and he did it to Kristen Gillibrand as well, which is, we saw this with Bondi. What these people do in Patel, they have these books on. In other words, typically when a cabinet secretary goes to testify in front of Congress, they have notes and everything about their testimony and their agency and what's going on. But that's not how this administration operates.
No.
We have never seen anything like this, where cabinet secretaries show up to testify and they're supposed to be talking about their budget or a specific issue that Congress has summoned them to speak about. But they don't show up with notes about that. They show up with notes about Democrats on the committee.
Yep.
And it's like opposition research. It's like campaign research. And when they get asked tough questions, they go after personally the senator. So he's talking about, you got $2 million from the healthcare industry. What did you use that money on? Steak dinners. And he's going after her personally instead of answering the question about all of these people who are contributing money, as if that has anything to do with the Department of Transportation, how much money she gets from Patty Murray gets from the healthcare industry. But that's what they do.
They come with
the only one I haven't seen do that, go in with one of these briefing books, is Blanche, actually.
Oh, right.
You know, he's the only one who hasn't done it, but every other Trump cabinet secretary goes in with these. Bessett has done it with these attack books. And they just attack the questioner.
Let's take a look at Gillibrand.
I didn't make any money.
This hearing, you are the witness. I am not the witness.
I don't have any. Well, maybe you should be.
Well, you know what?
Secretary Duffy, for $7 million.
Secretary Duffy, Secretary Duffy,
$7 million.
I think you should be telling this committee
that goes to put your ad on television. That's all to you. You spend that money.
This is what I'm concerned about. You are political, and you are using your position in political ways.
$500,000 paid by the trial bar to fly you on a private jet.
I've never been on a private jet.
Zen Air.
I don't.
Zen Air?
Never been on a private jet.
$462,000.
We don't. Members of Congress aren't allowed
to fly on a yes. Senators
Not
can.
true.
It is.
Not true.
Answer to that.
You know what, Mr. Secretary?
I made nothing.
Your job.
It puts your face on television.
Your
face on television. Your steak dinners. Your vacations by the trial bar. I make.
We're going to go to Senator Capito. Recognized you for your question.
Thank you.
And here it is. I mean, I'm of the opinion that it's Trump that is directing this kind of visual, that you get as much dirt as you can on them and you just give it back before they even get a chance to start on you. It's, again, mob boss tactics.
Yeah, well, it's not being done individually by them because they all do it. So it's obviously a coordinated plan.
It's diktat.
You know, that they do all this research on individual representatives and senators, and they just spend their entire time attacking them rather than answering the questions that they're being asked.
If you think about it.
You know, I can tell you, this is why Democrats have to get the majority, because as you saw there from the chairman, The Republican committee chairmen who run these committees just allow it. They don't stop that from happening. And I can tell you that when you have a Democrat committee chair, hopefully they will not allow this to happen and they will stop it. Now, I am certainly concerned that if we do things the way that we always have done, and we have the old guard, 80-year-old committee chairs, that may not happen. But hopefully that will not be the case.
Yeah, well, because the chair is in on it as well. They know that this is part of the plan.
And they just allow them to run the clock out.
It. Yeah, 100%.
They're on it. They know they're on a time limit.
Right.
And if they can just babble incoherently and say all this stuff, the senator or the representative runs out of time, and then that's it.
But I do want to make the point that this is a very effective, albeit completely insane way of politicking, right? If you look at it from the perspective of Republican voters who might be watching, they are seeing Democrats being exposed as swamp creatures, and that is what Trump wants. And whether it's true or not is irrelevant.
And we never get the answers to any of the questions.
No, just running the clock.
But they're there. Think about what is the purpose of these committee hearings. The purpose is so that the American people, through their representation, can find out what is happening inside federal agencies.
Yeah.
But they aren't going there with the intention of saying anything that they're doing.
No, because they're
going there with the intention of attacking the representatives who are trying to ask questions. So it's only going to stop if Democrats take the majority. It's that, because then, a Democratic committee chair like a Raskin in Judiciary or something would just stop the person and say, no, I'm going to put time back on the clock. You didn't lose any of your time because this person was filibustering. You're going to have to answer the question, treat it like almost like a courtroom. And that I've seen hearings that were conducted that way with strong chairmen, and, things happen. They get down to business. It's not going to happen as long as Republicans run Congress.
It also suggests that Republicans, because they now have infiltrated the FBI and the Department of Justice, that they get access to documents and paperwork and information that otherwise they might not be privy to, and then they weaponize that. And that is just more corruption as I see it.
Yeah, they're referencing like investigative files and things like that, that they supposedly found. So, yeah, unfortunately, these committee hearings are in many cases a waste of time, because we're getting nowhere. I mean, look, the only one that wasn't was the Blanche one, and that's and that's because Van Hollen was excellent. So was Jack Reed, who's not exactly a ball of fire, but Jack Reed the senator from Rhode Island, did an excellent job in his questioning, and Blanche did not employ that tactic, and so that's the only reason why we got anything out of that particular hearing.
Here's another example, similar thing, slightly different though. Trump using Mark Cuban as a prop. So Mark Cuban shows up at this kind of health conference. Dr. Roz is there, RFK Jr. is there. Mark Cuban, of course, he has a kind of online pharmacy, a kind of non-profit online pharmacy where everything is just $5.
Is it non-profit? I don't know about that.
No, it's just it's not non-profit, but it's just $5 is all you pay.
Yeah, so I was wondering about that myself. I didn't know the answer, because I was wondering, is that a for-profit business where he's making money off of it, or is he just trying to help people out?
Yeah, it's subsidized so that people know what they're paying, and that they only pay $5, which means
I'm sure what he's trying to do is a good thing. I just don't know if he's profiting from it personally or not.
I find him kind of difficult to work out, and I also don't understand why the hell he showed up at a Donald Trump press conference in this way, because, anybody could have told him that they would take advantage of him. Let's take a quick look.
Horribly treated. It's anti-weaponization. They've been weaponized. They've been, in some cases, imprisoned wrongly. They paid legal fees that they didn't have. They've gone bankrupt. Their lives have been destroyed. And they turn out to be right. It was a terrible period of time in the history of our country. And they worked on it. I know the Justice Department, it's really been working on it very hard. There's been numerous other occasions over the years where things like this have been done, but these were people that were weaponized and really treated brutally by a system that was so corrupt with corrupt people running it, and they're getting reimbursed for their legal fees and the other things that they had to suffer. Yeah, please.
I mean, Trump RX is such a scam anyway. I've looked into the detail of it. And, branding anything with his name on it is just jokes. But why do you think Mark Cuban showed up for that?
Cuban took a lot of heat from me, from other people, lots of other people about this. And he pushed back on it. He was upset. He even used the F word and then, pushing back. And then he deleted that tweet where he was cursing at his critics. I assume one of them was me because he follows me on Blue Sky. And I tagged him in my criticism where I, look, every single Democrat who has gone into the Oval Office for one of these events, there hasn't been many. I mean, we remember the Michigan governor, Whitmer, went in there and even put the binder in front of her face at one point. I mean, to try and hide. Because they all come to regret it every single time, because they think, okay, I'm going to go there for my one issue that I care about. In Whitmer's case, she was trying to keep a military base in Michigan open, keeping it from being shut down.
Yeah.
And that's why she went, among a couple other issues, but that was the main reason. And Cuban is there to try and get his drug stuff on the Trump, it's the government website. It's not the Trump. They named everything after Trump, but it's a government website, trying to get his drugs on there to sell. And so the thing is, though, you have to understand going in there how this goes down. And Cuban has to know. I mean, Cuban's on social media as much as I am,
No, he's
all
very
day, every
clued up.
day, posting shit about Trump.
Yeah.
So he has to know how this works. And how this works is that is not going to be just about your one thing that you are there for. That Trump is going to have you stand behind him, and he's going to go off into a bunch of different reasons. And Trump also, that clip didn't show up, but Trump also went on a long tangent about how the election was stolen in 2020 and he was robbed and this and that. And the whole time, you got to understand, if you're standing behind the president and all the press is there with all the cameras, that you are going to be seen on the 6 o'clock news and CNN and everything else, standing behind the president as he's saying these things. And the first clip that we just watched, he was defending the $1.7 billion slush fund being paid to January 6 criminals. And there you got Mark Cuban in the shot, in the optics, standing right there. There is Mark Cuban, a Kamala Harris supporter, a Democrat, standing behind Donald Trump as he's talking about defending this slush fund and talking about the election being stolen. And, I know Cuban thinks he didn't do anything wrong, but it seems to me, if your drug company is a good thing and it helps the American people, it seems to me like you should be able to get that on a U.S. government website without having to stand behind Donald Trump in the Oval Office.
Or flip it and let the 6 o'clock news cover you when you go and interrupt Trump and go, I'm sorry, but this is bullshit, and walk out. Yeah.
Imagine how powerful of a moment that would have been.
Right. Use it.
If Mark Cuban at that moment in time walked out and all the cameras would have followed him walking
100%.
out. And he could have went outside and said, look, I'm here for my drug company.
Yeah.
I didn't know that the president was going to start talking about January 6th and the 2020 election. I'm not here for that, so I left.
Yeah.
How powerful would that have been? But you know what? I was thinking afterwards that somebody, maybe you said it, somebody else said it, more and more, it's not really necessarily about Republican and Democrat. It's about billionaires against everyone else. The only people who just don't realize that are MAGA people.
Follow the money.
It's billionaires against them because they're going against their interests too.
Yeah.
But they just don't know it, or they're too dumb, or they're too caught up in the culture wars.
Regular people are going to be effectively eradicated.
Yeah.
I don't think people have even started to understand what AI is going to do for jobs.
And so
it's massive. This is massive.
I mostly like Mark Cuban, and I think that I agree with a lot of what he has to say. I even toyed with him as a future presidential candidate.
Right.
But, this makes me really wonder, is like every single one of these guys, Bezos and all them, it's really just all about their money and their power that comes from being a billionaire. And that seems to always take precedent over everything else.
It shows him as complicit. And he knows Trump is a fascist. So you don't get in a room with a fascist. You just don't do it. Principles, boundaries, something, and a position. Let's talk about the ballroom for a second. Trump, as we've said several times on this show, is more fired up about the ballroom than anything else. If he had this much energy for Gaza or Iran or Ukraine, then the world would be a much safer and more pleasant place to live. Let's take a look at him doing this weird press conference about the capacity for snipers on the new ballroom.
The missile proofing, we have, and the drone capacity upstairs. We can have all sorts of military up with it. I hate to use the word snipers, but we have great sniper capacity. It's built for our snipers, not the enemy snipers, our snipers. And because of the height, we get a very clear view of everything all over Washington. Yeah. The president
The enemy snipers, who are they? Democrats, maybe? Or the U.S. military fighting against ICE when you take them as your private army? And then he starts talking about the drones.
But again, we have a drone-proof roof. We have it's all sealed. And all of this that you see is totally sealed. And we use it as a drone port. We can have unlimited drones up there. And drones are what's happening right now. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't eat too much.
Yeah, and it's Greek, but it looks Greek, but it's opposite the Roman design. I mean, I couldn't get my head around this one at all. Let's have a look.
So, and they've had a lot of catastrophes with it then. So we have this, and if you take a look at this section, this is the different facade. So this is a Greek. More or less, it comes out of Greece. This is the ultimate facade for Greece. This faces the Treasury building. This is a different facade. That's Rome. And that faces the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, etc. So you have two facades. Primarily, you have two entrances. You have here. But the primary entrance is through the White House, directly through the White House. And it's really something. I think you can see the complexity. All of these columns go directly up to the roof. And the roof is a barrier. It's a shield because it's made out of, the sidewalls are steel, impenetrable steel, and also impenetrable glass. The glass is approximately 4 inches thick. And yet it's amazing. You can see through it as though it didn't exist. It's amazing.
Please stop talking. I mean, firstly, you shouldn't be giving away all of the kind of security details about this construction project anyway. I mean, should be a national secret. But this is the problem, isn't it? Nothing is a secret with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, that press conference went on for like 2 hours where he's talking about the ballroom. Yeah. There was a media company, big, either New York Times or Washington Post, one of the real big ones, who just recently put out a little study over in 2026 of the different topics that Trump has talked about in these various meetings, how many times he's brought them up. And by far, the ballroom was number one, way more than the Iran war, gas price, anything. By far, the number one. And I can tell you from somebody who listens to him, unfortunately, every day, listens to all his speeches and his press gaggles and all that. Every single day, every time he meets with press or with any group, the ballroom, he brings it up 100% of the time. I mean, he'll be in the Oval Office showing, the talking about with the president of Syria, and he'll start talking about the ballroom. He is obsessed with this. And when you listen to this press conference and he's going on and on about what a fortress this is going to be, he's talking about 4-inch thick glass windows and how nothing can penetrate it, no drones, how there's going to be an army of drones on the roof and how it's going to be high enough to oversee all of DC, and how there's going to be a military unit permanently stationed on the roof and it's going to be a drone-proof building. And it's got this entire bunker complex underground, command and control structure. And I'm thinking this thing's not going to be done for quite a while. It's projected to be done completed in the last year of his term. It's hard for me to believe that Trump is going to all this effort and time and this has become his obsession, only to hand it off to somebody else, a Democrat even, or even Vance. It doesn't seem his personality type. It increasingly feels like this is someone who doesn't intend to leave.
This is the point I keep making this. I mean, he only needs to say that it's going to have a McDonald's in it, and
if he says that, then I know he's not leaving.
Right? This is my point. He isn't leaving. And, I've done a couple of interviews on the weekend show the last couple of weeks, and I had this amazing guy, Paul Lance, on, who's a Republican, or former Republican, now an independent, pushing for Democrats. And he makes these wonderful videos, and he was just saying that people need to wake up and realize that they are not going to be able to vote their way out of this. That this now transcends a democratic system. It's not even a constitutional republic anymore. It is a pure dictatorship, but we project that it's going to be okay and everything's going to be okay. And I get accused of being a pessimist, but I insist that I'm being a realist. Listen to what this guy says. He is telling us what he is doing. He is telling us his intentions. He's stealing billions of dollars and enriching himself and his family, protecting himself from any investigations, ring-fencing his criminal fraternity. I mean, how much more evidence do we need?
Well, and he continues to joke about running again. And
it's not a joke. He doesn't have a sense of humor.
Hats,
he doesn't tell
Trump's
jokes.
2028 hats and all that.
It's real.
Yeah, Trump doesn't joke very, very often. So it's something that I have always taken very seriously and been very vigilant about, and I don't shrug it off. I mean, every time you ask Republicans about it, they say, "Oh, he's just joking around.
Of course
he's just pulling your chain."
Yeah,
he
that's
just
Trump
likes
being Trump.
He just likes to get under your skin and needle you, and he knows how to get you going. I don't think so. I think that I definitely think he's up to something.
He said at a rally, and I'll never forget it, my greatest regret was leaving the White House in 2021.
Yeah.
You don't
he wished
say
that he had
stuff.
stayed and fought.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is that I think he realized at the time the people around him, the apparatus, wasn't going to go along with it.
Right.
I mean, remember, he tried to put Jeffrey Clark appoint him as attorney general, and every single one of his 19 deputy attorney generals threatened to resign, over that, and he backed down. So, but think about this. Have any deputy attorney generals resigned over this slush fund? No. That's because this group of deputy attorney generals is much different than the group that was there in 2020.
Yeah.
This group that's running the Pentagon right now is much different than Mark Esper and the people running the Pentagon back then. So that's why he's even more dangerous when he says things like this now, because I think he's got the right team in place to have his back if he tries something.
100%. Let's talk about this weird Christian nationalist event, the Rededicate 250 event. Didn't Trump make a video message that was played at the event? Let's take a look at it.
All right.
Thus Solomon finished the house of the Lord and the king's house, and all that came into Solomon's heart to make in the house of the Lord, and in his own house he prosperously effected. And the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place to myself for a house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways.
I can't take any more of that. There's 2 more minutes.
That's plenty.
More than enough.
You know, this was part of his big like 250 celebration, you know, where he's going to organize this. His White House Faith Office organized this religious Christian nationalist event at the Capitol. A few things. Hardly anybody showed up. They expected this massive crowd of evangelicals. They weren't interested. They
couldn't afford to drive there because of the gas.
Yeah, they stayed in their local churches. They didn't go to DC for this. To listen to these wingnuts. So, and Trump doesn't even show up. You know, he puts out this pre-recorded message that he had recorded for a previous event. And you know, my favorite, I've said this before, my favorite time to listen to Trump, the only time I really enjoy listening to Trump is when he tries to talk about religion or the Bible, because it's always like such an obvious train wreck. So there he's got, you know, scripture in front of him off a teleprompter. And this is a recorded thing with like multiple takes because you can see the jump cuts.
And it's still that bad.
And he still can't read it properly. And he actually said yesterday, it was pretty funny because I'm sure he's heard about how bad this was, you know, and so from other people. And he said, well, it's very difficult to read scripture, is what he said. He said, this is what he said yesterday. He says, very, very difficult. I don't know if any of you realize this, but, you know, reading scripture from the Bible is very difficult. It's much harder to read than a speech, is what he said. You know, my comment on that is like, if you've never read the Bible before in your whole life, then yes, maybe some of the syntax and the verbiage can be a little tricky for you. You know, I'm surprised he didn't burst into flames as he's reading that. You know,
if only. Let's take a look at some of the pastors who made appearances and talking about the word of the Lord.
It's hard to believe that it would take 2 centuries for the Lord to raise up a great man to bring that ballroom finally to stand where it needs to stand. It's extraordinary. We only had to wait 200 years.
Praise be the ballroom, which is a gift from God.
Again, I mean, this is what Christian nationalism is all about. Which is using religion, using the Bible for political purposes. We saw it during the campaign when their messaging over and over again was that Trump survived Butler because God chose him. In fact, one of the speakers there said at that event that God directed him to turn his head at the exact moment to cause the bullet to miss him. And that was divine providence. And that was God saying, this is the person I want to be president. This is how I'm showing you
the chosen one.
I want him. So that's what they said at every single rally. They had a pastor get up and give that same message. And they said it again at this one. But you see there, what's the big fight right now? They want Congress to pay for the ballroom. And you got matter of fact, today, Republicans in the Senate stripped it out of the DHS funding bill, the ballroom funding. They did that this morning.
It's like $1 billion or something, isn't it?
But yeah, and when they're trying to get Congress to do that, they hold this Christian rally. And lo and behold, the first speaker gets up and says, God wants the ballroom.
Praise be.
Jesus wants that $1 billion for the ballroom, everybody.
Franklin Graham was there as well. Let's take a look.
America has become morally rotten, completely sick with sin, transgenderism, same-sex marriage, opening women's locker rooms to men are just the tip of the iceberg. Why do we need to rededicate ourselves? When God sent the flood and destroyed the earth, it was because man's heart had become so evil and violent. In the news, we see unimaginable violence, rapes, murders, mass shootings. On YouTube, there's so much violence. Movies, video games are full of violence. We have an insatiable appetite for violence. And I believe this grieves the heart of God and will bring his judgment if we don't repent as a nation.
He's turning into Charlton Heston, who also played Moses. I mean, this is the Republican talking points down to a T, said in a religious environment.
Yeah, his whole speech was about, and you could see the big headliners didn't even show up. You know, they sent in videos, Trump and him and a few others. But his whole speech was about how, you know, the United States is going down the tubes ever since we took Bible out of the prayer, out of the school, and we need to have the 10 Commandments and Bible, and that's why everything's going to hell. Look, I mean, I've heard this stuff since I was a kid. You know, I heard Nancy Reagan saying some of this stuff. You know, I mean, it was this is not anything new. I mean, this is pastors using religion for political purposes. That's what Franklin Graham is. That's why I call them political pastors. They aren't Jesus first, Bible first pastors. They are political. They use the Bible for political purposes. And that is what Franklin Graham does every single day. He is a politician that uses the Bible to achieve political ends. And Trump very effectively uses people like that to take all those people in the audience, many of whom are working class people now paying $4.50 a gas. You get them to forget how bad the economy is, how bad gas prices are, how bad grocery prices. If you think that this is a fight of good versus evil and the Democrats are sent by the devil and Trump is anointed by God, you're willing to overlook $4.50 gas prices if that's your mindset. And that's what the whole point of this was.
Yeah. People are increasingly carrying the can for this administration. I call it a silent recession. And I really believe that, you know, credit card debt is through the roof. And no one's talking about it. It's like, where is
bankruptcies, foreclosures, loan defaults.
Right.
Everything is at a record level right now.
And I notice just driving
car
around,
loan defaults.
Yes. I noticed just out and about, half the stores are for lease. The retail has just completely disappeared. And you know, this is going to catch up with America at some point. But since he started fudging the numbers, you know, the statistics, he can say whatever he wants. And he continues to say that America is doing better than ever. We are living under authoritarianism. That's what this is, this kind of false environment where the reality is decided by the leader.
And that's why
Putin's been doing it for
Mark
years.
Cuban, you don't go to the Oval Office.
You don't go to the Oval Office. Okay. We have to finish, but Ron, thanks again for a great chat. We'll come back next Wednesday and bring you another one. The audio podcast drops later tonight. If you want to listen to us, take us around with you in your ears. And don't forget to check out the Substacks, mine, the Anthony Davis. Ron, of course, runs Midas Plus, so you can find him there, Ron Filipkowski. And we'll bring you...
I'm not an individual. I'm just a cog in the Midas machine, corporate machine.
We all are to a certain extent, and we love it. We'll come back next Wednesday and bring you another one. Thanks a lot, Ron.
All right. See you next week.